In 1994, Nintendo released Metroid 3, a sequel to the NES and Game Boy originals, which despite selling poorly in Japan, would go on to find worldwide acclaim, even being included on greatest games of all time lists from various journalism outlets including G4, IGN, Games Radar, and Popular Mechanics, to name a few. Super Metroid, along with Castlevania Symphony of the Night, is even credited with the creation of the Metroidvania subgenre, which inspired gems like Cave Story and the more recent Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Despite Super Metroid's pioneering, it comes from a time before digital game releases were commonplace, which means this game never received a content patch. And while it's not uncommon for developers to update a game's ROM between production runs, most of Super Metroid's exploits were discovered years later. So chances are, if you have access to a copy of Super Metroid, you can likely perform any of these for yourself. Not only that, I'll show you how. Let's get started. This glitch takes the number 10 spot only because it might be considered more optimization than exploit. Early on in the game, upon entering the fight with Kraid, if you fire a charge beam shot at his eye, and follow it up quickly with a super missile in his mouth, you can freeze him in place before he has a chance to stand. 3 more super missiles in his mouth will finish him off before he even gets a chance to attack. This trick does have to be pulled off quickly to be successful, but it looks more difficult than it really is. In fact, the clip you're watching now was only my second ever attempt at it. If done correctly, you can skip Kraid's fight entirely, and keep the camera locked on the bottom left tile of the boss room, which causes some odd effects, but poses no danger to your save file, as exiting and returning to the room fixes the camera. This is an exploit that is clearly most useful in a speedrun, but even in a casual playthrough, it can be pretty fun to pull off. Not a lot of setup here, just a little practice. While this glitch also has speed at its core, it can provide a significant advantage in the fight against the final boss. Just as in the original Metroid, in order to defeat Mother Brain, you must first clear the way through these red gates known as Zebetites by firing missiles at them. However, in order to keep the game running smoothly, Nintendo opted to only have one gate loaded at a time and move it forward as Samus progresses. What this means for the player is if you can make it past the first gate without destroying it, none of the others will load. Accomplishing this, much like killing Kraid quickly, relies on input speed. Immediately upon entering the room, move to this location just below the gate, and freeze the bottom spaghetti-o the moment it spawns. Once it's frozen in place, spin jump into the gate to take damage, and after getting knocked back, spin jump once more, and then jump forward without spinning, all while Samus is still under invincibility frames. This works because the game tries to allow Samus to stand on the frozen enemy inside the wall, which actually clips her inside it just a bit. Then by jumping into the gate and holding left, it ejects her from the wall on the wrong side. Pretty cool trick. Now you can make your way to the boss without anything in your way, and those super missiles you saved can be injected directly into Mother Brain. Just keep in mind that the screw attack will have to be disabled in order to take the original damage, and these actions will have to be performed extremely quickly in order to skip across the gate. This one will definitely require some practice, but is by no means impossible. In several locations in Super Metroid, these one-way gates exist that require a shot from one specific side to open. Their primary purpose is to prevent early access to late-game areas, or to force more in-depth exploration out of the player. The entire point is that once they close, Samus will have to find another way around. Or not. There's little explanation necessary to describe the way this exploit functions. The switches are simply placed too close to the gate itself. By firing a pixel-perfect super missile from the backside of the gate, the explosion radius will reach the green lamp and open it up. First you stand a pixel or so away from the gate, then aim diagonal up and jump toward the gate, firing a super missile when Samus is floating around midpoint in the hallway and still moving forward. It's one of those things that's easier to feel than to describe, but once you get the timing down, it can be repeated somewhat reliably. Interestingly, this glitch only works on gates that have their switch on the left side. right-sided gates require a much more complex skip to circumvent, and some of them still haven't been cracked today, over 2 decades later. Okay, so before I explain this glitch, we should probably touch on the Crystal Flash briefly. This is an intended mechanic that is activated when Samus is on 50 or less HP, has empty reserve tanks, and at least 10 missiles, 10 super missiles, and 11 power bombs. By highlighting power bombs and going into Morphball mode, then holding down on the D-pad, L, R, and B, her remaining ammo will be converted into energy, healing her until the resources deplete. While the Crystal Flash is noteworthy in its own right, it can also be used to skip Spore Spawn, the first mini-boss of the game. Normally, the way to escape the boss room is by firing a super missile into this block and rolling through the tunnel back out into the main room. However, the only thing preventing this from being an entrance rather than an exit is the edge of the screen unloading a missile shot from the opposite end. By using the Crystal Flash from within the tunnel, Samus will end up cramped into a one-tile crouching position, which actually allows for a point-blank super missile and skipping Spore Spawn entirely. Alternatively, through careful positioning, it's possible to stand on a specific tile and make a super missile connect with the block from outside the Morphball tunnel. One would think this would be more likely to work by being as close to the tunnel as possible, but the game has contingencies for this, so the sweet spot actually ends up around here, with Samus's left foot fully obscured by this tallest plant. You'll know when you've broken the block when the screen shakes, and it only works if approached from left to right. And if you don't yet have power bombs and want to skip fighting the plant, this method is probably the better option. The Machball, or literal Machball as it's commonly spelled online, is probably the most utilized glitch on this list due to its immediate utility on a new game file. Here's why. Super Metroid is one of the few Metroid games with a dedicated run button, and even without the speed booster, it's possible to run slightly faster than normal by holding it down. There are a few instances in the game where it's necessary to use this sprinting mechanic to get across collapsing floors, and even more where the speed booster is required. Specifically, this room in Brinstar is often exploited because of a reserve tank and a super missile tank that awaits on the other side. Unfortunately, these automatic shutters begin closing when Samus runs across the upper platform, and running without the speed booster isn't fast enough to make it through. So, if you want those super missiles, either Samus's speed must increase or her size decrease. That's where the Machball comes in. Although it's not possible to run while in Morphball mode normally, this limitation can be circumvented with a series of quick inputs. First, you hold the run button to sprint as normal, then jump and press down while in mid-jump arc. Then you press down again on the same frame Samus hits the ground to enter Morphball mode, and finally, hold the direction you want to move in. The result is a Morphball that moves at the speed of Samus' sprint, which allows her to just slip under the closing shutters. But be warned, this one took me ages to pull off for this clip. Super Metroid speedrunners use this technique flawlessly in runs, but that is only indicative of their skill and not on this trick's ease. If you'd like to learn it, be willing to invest some time. What's funny about this glitch is that if this room used speed booster blocks instead of shutter gates as its item check, this exploit would serve no purpose. But because of Super Metroid's world layout, the Machball is the fastest method for obtaining super missiles in the game, so suddenly it's a valuable technique. The gravity jump is an exploit of Samus's underwater acceleration that allows her to jump much higher than intended, and can be used to skip collecting the space jump altogether. While it does require the gravity suit, it's perhaps the easiest exploit to perform on this list. While underwater and wearing the gravity suit, pause the game and then press and hold jump just before the screen is completely black. Ideally, you'd like to hear the jumping sound effect without seeing a visual change to Samus' sprite. Then while in the pause menu, unequip the gravity suit, and unpause while keeping the jump button held down. This will force Samus to skyrocket through the water, which is specifically useful in entering Ridley's lair through the lava pool beneath his cave without space jump. This works because without the gravity suit, Samus has more sustained inertia while underwater. Now, normally this is balanced by having greatly reduced speed as well, and the final product ends up being a slow and difficult to control character. However, by initiating the jump while wearing the gravity suit, she has her above water speed values applied to the jump. Then by taking off the gravity suit, that sustained inertia is applied to the existing jump speed, resulting in an overall net gain to jump height. Of course, you will have to then navigate the jump arc with slippery underwater movement, but that's a small price to pay for the added reach. You may know that there are a few different ways to take out Dragon, the boss of Meridia. In addition to fighting her normally, it's also possible to destroy one of the wall-mounted turrets and use the grapple beam on its exposed circuitry to electrocute both her and yourself. Provided you have a few extra energy tanks, this can be one of the easiest methods to secure the kill. And while this is an intended mechanic, there's another unintentional method that has equally interesting results. First, fight Dragon normally until she's red and near death. Then allow yourself to be caught by her spray attack so that Samus becomes slowed. This slower speed allows the room to be large enough to trigger the speed booster, and if a Shine Spark is used to deal the killing blow on the boss, Samus will remain blue after returning to the ground and be in a fixed speed boosting state, allowing normal movement, but invulnerability and the capability to destroy most enemies on contact. While in the blue suit state, Samus will have a Shine Spark charged and ready to execute at any time, so through this exploit, it's possible to bring a Shine Spark into a room that doesn't normally allow for it. Just don't press the run button or take damage in any way, you'll lose the suit. This glitch isn't commonly used in speedrunning, and in fact, actually slows Samus down while it's in effect. The value of this glitch comes from the novelty of exploring the planet in the quote-unquote fourth suit. This is my final sequence break on the list, and also the most difficult exploit to perform by far. It involves getting stuck in a door, and then crouching, using the run button, turning, and using the X-ray scope all at once to force Samus into a standing position, and then raising her center axis by 5 pixels. Then she can crouch and repeat the process to climb through the wall all the way out of the room. The problem isn't so much with the X-ray climb itself, it's getting stuck in the wall in the first place. There are a few ways to do this, like getting hit by an enemy in the perfect location, or Shine Sparking in the opposite direction while passing through a door. Both easier said than done. In fact, this trick is so difficult, it was the only one I was unable to personally perform for this video, and all the footage you're watching is coming from various speedrunning guides. As for the practical applications of this glitch, it's one of the most consistent and stable methods of going out of bounds, and although the camera won't move from the room you perform the glitch within, Samus can still trigger events and pass through doors, assuming you're capable of working blind for a bit. This wire overlay is a mod that gives you a visual representation of where Samus actually is in regards to the game world, and is used by speedrunners to theorycraft and practice routing. Although it's not a normal part of Super Metroid, I hope it gives you a visual sense of what's actually taking place when this glitch is performed. This is one of the more flexible glitches on this list, and it can be used just about anywhere you want to be above or below the current room, so it can be used to obtain upgrades early, and most notably, can be used to skip the boss statues and reach Turian without killing any of the main bosses. You know, assuming you can get yourself stuck in the door in the first place. The number 2 spot goes to a very simple glitch that allows Samus to have all 5 beams equipped at the same time, which normally is not possible. To do this, simply toggle all beams on except for plasma, and then move to the right side of the screen where Samus's boot upgrades are listed, and press left and A at the same time. This should force Plasma Beam active without disabling Spacer, as well as add the first 3 letters of the various suit next to it, as the sprite sheet for the menu overflows. Now, if overflowing sprites aren't obvious enough, let me be clear in saying that this glitch is incredibly unstable, and firing this beam combo uncharged will crash the game every time. However, there is a workaround that will allow you to capitalize on this lost potential. First, charge any of the standard beams, then pause the game and perform the VAR glitch again, then unpause, making sure to continue holding down the B button. This beam combo, often referred to as the murder beam online, does not have a sprite and does not travel after being shot, but it also does not destroy itself when coming into contact with an enemy. What this means is that you can place the end of Samus's gun in a specific location and release the charge shot to mark a tile for constant damage. This obviously has the potential to destroy large bosses like Mother Brain, which can be defeated this way with a single shot. Also, just check out the graphical issues it causes in this fight. Which reminds me, even firing a charge shot is only safe if done at certain angles. Left, straight up, or straight down are all good, but as I learned the hard way, this glitch does not like diagonal shots or shots to the right one bit. And as good as it is against Mother Brain, it's even better against Ridley. For some still unknown reason, the invisible shot that you place will be picked up by the end of Ridley's tail, and carried by him throughout the boss room, inflicting constant damage. The moment his tail passes across the tile you mark, he will repeatedly flash white, and the end of his tail will begin to burn as the invisible weapon is dragged alongside him. That's some serious revenge for Samus. Oh, and remember to turn Plasma Beam back off when you're done. Just trying to open a hatch with all 5 beams will still crash the game. Not that I did that or anything. The number 1 spot on this list goes to a glitch with the capability to reset all bosses and upgrades in the game, but leave Samus with all of her currently obtained items and equipment for use in playing through the game a second time with the same file. What this means is that you can pick up the same tank upgrades again to exceed the intended maximum of energy tanks, reserve tanks, missiles, super missiles, and power bombs, and fight every boss again with a maxed out character. This glitch only works in a few limited locations, but one of the easiest to set up is here, in the secret room to the right of the original Turian escape tunnel. To find it, fall down the right wall until you hit this small platform and then bomb the wall. Inside there's a yellow hatch. Open it and walk through. Now, on the inside of the door, perform the VAR glitch again from earlier to have Spacer and Plasma active at the same time, but unequip Wave Beam. Next, open the hatch with a point blank shot, and then turn right and fire again. The top of the screen will turn into corrupted data, and the game will slow to a crawl. Stepping back through the door will fix the slow speed and make the game believe that the only thing the player has done on this file is collect Machball. All bosses will respawn, and upgrades will reappear, all while leaving Samus with her current loadout. The way this works is complicated, but I'll do my best to explain it, at least to the degree that I understand it. Firing a shot with this particular beam combo creates a data overflow of some kind that forces bizarre values into certain in-game variables. One byproduct of this is altering the actual composition of Samus's environment. Garbage sprites fill the screen, deleting whatever's underneath them, and that's why executing the glitch in this location is so important. In actuality, the reset glitch doesn't just corrupt the top of the screen, it corrupts the top 24 screens of the room Samus is occupying. Normally, this room is a speed booster puzzle. You freeze these enemies on the floor, and run over them to set up a shine spark up this long shaft to reach the super missile tank at the top. But what makes it exceptional for this glitch is that it's one of the tallest and widest rooms in the game. This gives plenty of space for the reset glitch to consume 24 screens worth of data without affecting Samus or the hatch she came through. Firing the shot to the right spawns the garbage, which slows the game down to a crawl, but also overflows the game state back to an earlier point. Then exiting the room leaves the corruption behind as well, which allows the game to pick back up to its normal speed. From this point, you can replay the game in full in this pseudo New Game Plus state, and collect double the intended amounts of health and ammo. And that's it. Those are the 10 most interesting Super Metroid glitches in my eyes. Researching this topic was a long, arduous process because most of this game's exploits tend to be shared in private communities or just by word of mouth. Hell, even most recordings of this game's early speedruns no longer exist. Since this game is from 1994, I'm sure there were many people that encountered some glitch accidentally but had no way of documenting their experience or talking about it with other people. While there are videos online of people performing some glitches in the game, very few have explanations, so a lot of this video is trial and error for me. However, there is a phenomenal glitch FAQ document posted on GameFAQs by a user called Brickroad, last updated in 2002, which was a massive help in the creation of this video. He goes into much more detail on the glitches I showcased and talks about dozens more that didn't make the cut. So if you didn't get enough glitch content, feel free to give that document a read. I'll post a link to it in the video description. Just keep in mind that it's all text, so it does require some familiarity with the game to follow along. And with that, I'm afraid I have to draw Super Metroid to a close. This was generally one of the most fun games I've covered in the series, and if you decide to give any a try for yourself, share your experience down in the comments. I would love to learn that this video inspired the discovery of a new exploit technique one day. And as always, thanks for watching.